You've got to be kidding me. This is first class now? The man's voice cuts through the first-class cabin like broken glass. What is this airline doing letting charity cases wander up here? You don't look like 3A, pal. You look like you missed coach and slipped through the cracks. Heads turn. A few people stiffen. Someone snorts. The target of the contempt stands frozen in the aisle, boarding pass pinched between two fingers. Marcus Hale, 42. Black, medium brown skin, clean-shaven, wearing a plain charcoal jacket over a white tee, no logo, no watch screaming money, just calm posture and steady eyes. He's a businessman, reserved by habit, precise by nature. He built his life the hard way, brick by brick, learning early that quiet is often stronger than loud. He doesn't flinch. The man in the window seat, Bradley Knox, late 50s, pale skin flushed with entitlement, silver hair slicked back like a verdict already rendered, leans into the aisle with a crooked grin. He wears a tailored blazer and the smug confidence of someone who has never been told no. Seat 3A is mine. I paid real money, not some last-minute upgrade for... He waves Marcus off with two fingers, whatever that is. A ripple moves through the cabin, phones tilt, eyes dart. A flight attendant steps closer, her smile practiced, brittle. "Sir, let's!" Bradley laughs, loud and mean. "Oh, don't sir me. Do your job. This isn't a soup kitchen. Commercial airline, remember? We have standards." Marcus exhales once, slow. "My boarding pass says 3A. Bradley squints at the paper like it's a forgery. "Sure it does. And I'm the Pope," he snorts again. "I swear, every time they loosen airline policy, this is what happens. People start confusing passenger rights with wants. Marcus doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't match the heat. I'm not confusing anything." "Oh, you're confusing plenty," Bradley snaps, sarcasm dripping. "Confusing confidence with belonging. Confusing a seat number with a lifestyle. Look around, do you see anyone who looks like you up here? The insult lands. Heavy. Ugly. A woman across the aisle shifts, uncomfortable. A man 2 rows back lifts his phone higher. The attendant clears her throat. "Mr. Knox, please." Bradley cuts her off. "Please, what? Please pretend this is normal? Please reward someone for..." He lowers his voice just enough to be cruel. "For checking the wrong box on a form?" Marcus meets his gaze. Calm. Unblinking. "Sir," the attendant turns to Marcus. "May I see your pass?" He hands it over. She scans it. The screen beeps. Her brow furrows just a flicker, then smooths. "There seems to be a discrepancy." Bradley grins. "There it is. Discrepancy. Fancy word for mistake." Marcus waits. "We'll sort this out," the attendant says, already angling her body toward him. "If you could just step aside." "Absolutely not," Bradley says, settling back, victorious. "He can step aside. I'm not moving." The aisle narrows around Marcus like a judgment. The first-class cabin hums with whispered assumptions. He can feel it, the old familiar weight of being measured by appearances, of being asked to prove what others are granted. He steps 1 pace back, not in retreat but in space. "I'll wait," he says. Bradley smirks. "See? That's what I thought. Always a line, always a wait. That's the system working," the attendant murmurs into her intercom. Another crew member appears, then a supervisor. Words like verification and protocol float hollow. Bradley keeps going, savoring it. "You know what kills me?" he says to no one in particular. "They tell us first class is about exclusivity. Then they turn it into a social experiment. Next thing you know, they'll be handing out champagne to, he glances at Marcus, to people who don't even know which fork to use. Marcus closes his eyes for half a second. A breath. Control. His father's voice echoes, "Don't give them your fire. Give them your time." The supervisor finally speaks. "Sir, for now, we'll need you to step off the aircraft while we confirm." Marcus opens his eyes. "I haven't raised my voice. I've shown my pass. I've followed airline policy. I'm being asked to leave because someone decided I don't belong." Silence. A beat too long. Bradley claps once. Slow. "Bravo. Victim speech already. That didn't take long." The supervisor stiffens. "Sir, I'll step off," Marcus says gently, cutting through the noise. "But I want it noted that I'm doing so under protest. These are my passenger rights." Bradley laughs outright. "Write it in your diary." Marcus turns. As he does, a phone slips from someone's hand and clatters to the carpet. The sound rings louder than it should. He pauses at the door, looks back, not at Bradley, but at the cabin, at the eyes that watched, at the smiles that didn't, at the silence that chose comfort over courage. "Seat 3A will still be here," Marcus says quietly. Bradley waves him off. "In your dreams." Marcus steps onto the jet bridge. The door closes behind him with a soft final thud, and then his phone vibrates. Once, he doesn't answer yet. He looks at the screen. A live indicator pulses. Someone is still recording. Someone is still watching. A verse rises in his mind, uninvited, but steady. "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Psalm 34, 1-8. Marcus straightens his jacket. The ordinary mask is still on. The quiet is still his. Inside the cabin, Bradley reclines, satisfied. "See?" he says, smug. "Order restored." Outside, the plane idles. Time, patient and precise, takes its seat. If you've ever been judged before you were heard, pushed aside before you were known, then what happens next with Marcus Hale will make you rethink power itself. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay with Dignity Voices to follow this story to its reckoning. As the jet bridge hums and the clock ticks toward departure, one quiet decision is about to collide with a system that never expected him to speak back. The jet bridge hums like a held breath. Marcus Hale stands just beyond the aircraft door, the fluorescent lights flattening everything into pale indifference. The commercial airline logo repeats along the wall, polished, confident, expensive. He can still hear the muffled cabin behind him, laughter, the clink of glassware, the low, satisfied murmur of people who believe the world bends naturally in their direction. Behind the door, Bradley Knox stretches his legs into the aisle, flagging down the same supervisor who escorted Marcus off. "Hey," Bradley says, voice syrupy now. "Just making sure we're good here. Wouldn't want any confusion delaying us." The supervisor forces a smile. "We're confirming seat assignments, sir," Bradley chuckles. "Good, because I paid for first class, not some diversity workshop at 30,000 feet. A few passengers laugh, nervous, complicit. The supervisor glances toward the cockpit, then back to Bradley. "We'll handle it." Bradley leans closer, dropping his voice with theatrical secrecy. "You know how it goes. You give people an inch, they start demanding a mile. Next thing you know, they're quoting passenger rights like it's a coupon code." The supervisor nods, not agreeing but not correcting either. Out on the jet bridge, Marcus watches through the small oval window. He sees the supervisor's posture soften toward Bradley, the way authority often does when it recognizes its own reflection. He feels the familiar calculus forming the silent question of who will be inconvenienced, least if the truth is bent. His phone vibrates again. This time, he answers. "Marcus," a calm voice says. "We're seeing movement." "I'm aware," Marcus replies softly. "You want us to step in?" "Not yet." A pause. Respectful. Understood. He ends the call and slips the phone into his pocket. He's not angry. Anger would be easy. This is older than anger. This is the ritual of privilege, testing its boundaries, confident that the room will lean its way. The door opens again. The supervisor steps out, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Hale," she begins. "Careful. We're still verifying the seat. There appears to be a pattern." Marcus finishes evenly. "I know," she blinks. "Excuse me?" "A pattern where inconvenience flows in one direction," he says, "and certainty in another." She tightens her grip on the clipboard. "Sir, we're just following airline policy." Marcus nods. "So am I." She hesitates, then lowers her voice. "Mr. Knox is a frequent flyer. He has status." Marcus looks past her, toward the runway. "So do I." Her eyes flicker curiosity, then dismissal. "For now, we're asking you to remain here." Inside the cabin, Bradley watches the exchange through the window and laughs, loud enough to be heard. "Told you," he calls out. "There's always a process. Funny how it never seems to work in your favor, huh?" Marcus turns his head slightly. Not enough to engage. Enough to acknowledge the sound. Bradley isn't done. He rises halfway from his seat, addressing the cabin like an MC. "I mean, look, folks, this is why tickets cost what they cost. You're paying for separation, for order, not for some guy who thinks a boarding pass is a personality." A man near the aisle shifts, uncomfortable. A woman whispers, "That's enough," but doesn't raise her voice. Bradley smirks. "Oh, relax. If he really belonged up here, we wouldn't be having this conversation." The supervisor clears her throat sharply. "Mr. Knox, please sit down." He does, slowly, deliberately. "Sure. Wouldn't want to be disruptive." The irony hangs thick. Marcus feels the weight of eyes again, some curious, some sympathetic, most calculating the cost of speaking. He thinks of the countless moments that led here. Boardrooms where his ideas were praised after being repeated by someone else. Conferences where his badge was checked twice. Rooms where he learned that silence, wielded correctly, could be a scalpel. A gate agent approaches, whispering to the supervisor. A tablet changes hands. The supervisor's face tightens. "Sir," she says to Marcus, "we're going to need a few more minutes." "How many?" Marcus asks. "As many as it takes." Inside the cabin, Bradley reclines fully now, hands behind his head. "Take your time," he calls. "We're not in a rush. Some of us planned ahead." The plane's engine whines, then settles. A delay announcement crackles faintly over the intercom, vague, sanitized. Marcus closes his eyes briefly. Another verse surfaces, steady as breath. "Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere." Psalm 84. 10. He opens his eyes and meets the supervisor's gaze. "When you finish verifying," he says, "I expect the same urgency you showed when you removed me." She swallows. "Of course." Time stretches. The jet bridge clock ticks louder than it should. Phones buzz. Somewhere, a clip is uploaded. Somewhere else, a notification lights up. Inside the cabin, a flight attendant leans toward Bradley. "Sir, we need you seated for departure." He waves her off. Relax. We're waiting on administration. He glances toward the door one more time, eyes narrowing, not with victory now, but with something else. A prickle, an unease he can't name. Because Marcus Hale isn't pacing. He isn't pleading. He isn't calling for a manager. He's waiting. And systems fragile. Arrogant systems rarely realize they're being measured until the scale tips. The supervisor's tablet chimes. She looks down. Her face drains of color. All right, folks. Let's settle this circus. Bradley Knox's voice carries again too loud, too pleased with itself. He's standing now, one hand gripping the overhead bin like a podium. We've all got places to be, and we're being held hostage because someone doesn't understand how first class works. A few uneasy laughs ripple through the cabin. Marcus Hale is still on the jet bridge, framed by the narrow window like an exhibit. Two gate agents stand beside him now. One avoids eye contact. The other watches him with the stiff alertness of someone afraid of making the wrong moral choice. The supervisor steps forward, clipboard tight to her chest. Mr. Hale, she says louder than necessary. Until we can fully resolve this discrepancy, we're going to have to deplane you and rebook. The words land like a public verdict. A woman near the aisle gasps softly. Someone whispers, "That's not right." But no one stands. Bradley laughs, sharp and satisfied. See? Process. Policy. That's how a commercial airline survives, by not letting exceptions turn into chaos. Marcus feels the heat now. Not anger, but exposure. The kind that strips dignity layer by layer. He looks at the supervisor. You scanned my pass. You know it's valid. She hesitates. There are concerns. Concerns about what? Marcus asks. Bradley answers for her. About optics. About credibility. About letting the wrong person sit in the right seat. The gate agent shifts. Sir, please. Bradley waves him off. Don't sir me. I'm not the one causing a delay. This is basic airline policy. You buy what you deserve. Marcus turns slightly, addressing the cabin now. Not pleading, not shouting. I've complied with every instruction. I've been respectful, and I'm being removed because someone decided I don't look like I belong. Bradley scoffs. Oh, here we go. Turn it into a sermon. You people always do that. A hush falls. The word you hangs, ugly and unmistakable. A phone drops to record mode. Someone else starts streaming openly now. The supervisor stiffens. Mr. Knox, that's inappropriate. Bradley smirks. What? I didn't say anything that isn't obvious. We all see patterns. That's not prejudice, that's experience. Marcus feels the weight of history press in the old script repeating itself in a modern cabin with better lighting and worse excuses. He thinks of how corporate negligence often hides behind procedure, how institutions claim neutrality while choosing sides every time. The supervisor clears her throat. Mr. Hale, please collect your belongings. A murmur spreads confusion, discomfort, a low thrum of shame. Marcus nods once. He bends to retrieve his bag. The aisle feels longer now, narrower. As he steps forward, Bradley leans out again, voice dripping with sarcasm. Hey, he says, stage whispering to the cabin. Anyone else think this is exactly why fares keep going up? Because we're too busy worrying about feelings instead of facts. Marcus pauses. He looks at Bradley, not with hatred, not even with anger, but with something far more unsettling. Clarity. You're not worried about facts, Marcus says quietly. You're worried about losing comfort. Bradley's smile tightens. I'm worried about standards. Standards without justice, Marcus replies, are just rules that protect power. Bradley laughs louder, defensive now. Listen to him. Sounds like a lawyer. Marcus meets his eyes. I understand legal accountability better than you think. The supervisor interjects, flustered. Sir, please, let's move along. As Marcus steps onto the jet bridge fully, the cabin door remains open. The humiliation is no longer contained, it's on display. People are watching from the gate, from nearby rows, from screens. A flight attendant whispers to another, "This is going to be bad." Bradley hears her. For him? Sure. For us? We'll be in the air in 5 minutes. The jet bridge door closes with a hollow thud. Outside, Marcus stands alone now, the noise muffled behind glass. His reflection stares back at him, composed, controlled, unmistakably human. He pulls out his phone. Inside the cabin, Bradley sinks back into his seat, triumphant. Finally, he mutters. Order restored. But something is wrong. The delay announcement doesn't come. Instead, the intercom crackles again, this time sharper, urgent. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. Bradley frowns. What now? Up front, the supervisor's tablet buzzes again. Her fingers tremble as she reads. She glances toward the door, toward the jet bridge, toward Marcus. Outside, Marcus's screen fills with messages rapid, synchronized. View counts climbing. Names he hasn't seen in years lighting up. Legal teams. Compliance officers. Executives who understand exactly what public humiliation means in an age of receipts. He doesn't smile. He doesn't gloat. He whispers a verse under his breath, steady as a heartbeat. He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Micah 6:8. Inside the cabin, Bradley shifts in his seat. The laughter has died. People are staring now, not at Marcus, but at their phones, at the screens lighting up with the story they didn't expect to be part of. A man whispers, "Is that?" Another replies, "No way." Bradley leans forward, irritation creeping into his voice. What? What is it? No one answers him. The supervisor stands frozen, color draining from her face as the realization creeps in slow. Terrible. This wasn't just humiliation. This was evidence. And evidence has a way of demanding legal accountability, especially when corporate negligence has been recorded in high definition. The cabin falls silent. The plane does not move. If you've ever watched injustice happen in front of you and felt powerless to stop it, what comes next? With Marcus Hale, will remind you that silence is never the end of the story. Like, subscribe, and stay with Dignity Voices as truth begins to speak. As the cabin waits and the world starts watching, Marcus makes a choice not to shout, not to threaten, but to let silence do what outrage never could. Silence doesn't fall, it spreads. It seeps from the cockpit first, then the aisle, then the rows of leather seats where laughter once sat comfortably. The first-class cabin feels suddenly smaller, as if the air itself has tightened. Overhead bins hum, seatbelts chime. No one speaks. Marcus Hale stands on the jet bridge, just beyond the glass, the fluorescent light flattening the world into clean lines and hard truths. He is motionless, not frozen, not uncertain, deliberate. His shoulders are relaxed. His jaw is loose. The calm he wears is practiced, earned the long way, through rooms that tested patience as a price of entry. Inside the cabin, Bradley Knox senses the shift before he can explain it. The buoyant smugness that carried him minutes ago drains into a prickling unease. He sits up, scans the faces around him. People aren't looking at Marcus anymore. They're looking away from Bradley. "What's going on?" Bradley snaps, loud enough to reclaim attention. "We resolved this. The guy's off the plane. Why are we still sitting here?" No one answers. The supervisor stands near the galley with her tablet held close, as if the screen might bite. She reads the same message again. Slower this time. Her lips part, then press together. She doesn't like what she's seeing, but more than that, she understands it. A flight attendant leans in and whispers, "Operations says to hold." Bradley scoffs. "Operations doesn't run this cabin. I do." He stops himself, glancing around. "I mean, policy does." The supervisor lifts her eyes to him. "They are different now, less deferential, more alert. When legal review is triggered, policy pauses. The word legal lands like a weight. Across the aisle, a woman lowers her phone. I think that man out there is someone important." Bradley laughs, brittle. "Everyone thinks they're important." Another passenger murmurs, "Not like this." Phones buzz again. The low hum of notifications spreads. Someone gasps softly. Someone else shakes their head, eyes widening at a headline forming in real time. Outside, Marcus watches the reflections shift on the glass faces layered over faces, screens over eyes. He doesn't step closer. He doesn't retreat. He allows the moment to take its shape. He thinks of how corporate negligence often masquerades as confusion, how institutions stall when accountability approaches, hoping time will dull impact. He knows better. Time sharpens evidence. His phone vibrates once more. He doesn't answer. He already knows what the call would say. Inside, the supervisor's tablet buzzes again, this time longer, insistent. A banner flashes across the top. "Hold aircraft! Executive review in progress." Potential legal exposure. Her breath catches. She glances toward the door, toward Marcus, toward the decision she didn't realize she'd been walking toward all her career. Behind her, Bradley feels control slipping and reaches for volume. "This is insane," he barks. "You're grounding a plane because someone cried discrimination? I want names. I want explanations." The supervisor doesn't turn to him. "Sir, please remain seated." Bradley's voice sharpens. "You can't do this." She finally looks at him. "We can, and we are." The cabin absorbs the exchange. A ripple moves quiet, decisive. The balance has shifted. Not with shouting, not with threats, with process. Marcus finally turns his head and meets the supervisor's gaze through the glass. The look lasts only a second. There is no accusation in it, no triumph. Only certainty, the kind that tells you the next step has already been taken. She swallows. The intercom crackles. Her voice, when it comes, is steady. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We are entering a brief operational pause." A pause, not a delay, not a mistake. A pause. Bradley slams his hand on the armrest. "For what?" "For review," she says. "For whose review?" he demands. She doesn't answer. The jet bridge door unlocks with a soft click. The sound is small, but it carries. The door opens. Marcus steps forward, but stops at the threshold. He doesn't rush. He doesn't reclaim space aggressively. He waits, allowing the system to acknowledge him on its own terms. The supervisor steps aside. "Mr. Hale," she says carefully, "we need to speak with you." Bradley jumps up. "You've got to be kidding me." Marcus meets his gaze briefly, not with defiance, with recognition. as if seeing Bradley clearly for the first time, stripped of noise and posture. "We can talk," Marcus says calmly, after the review. The word settles like a verdict. Bradley opens his mouth to argue, then closes it. For the first time, he has no leverage, no audience willing to laugh, no policy to hide behind. Marcus steps fully into the cabin now. Heads turn not to judge, but to understand. The aisle that felt narrow before feels different, wider, expectant. He walks past seat 3A without sitting. He stops near the galley beside the supervisor. He doesn't demand apologies. He doesn't explain himself. He lets the moment breathe. A verse rises in him, quiet and grounding, steady as breath. "In quietness and trust shall be your strength." Isaiah 31:5. Outside the windows, the runway waits unchanged, patient. Inside, a system recalibrates in real time. Messages move, calls connect. Screens light up with consequences that have not yet arrived but are already inevitable. The ordinary mask remains in place, but the quiet power behind it is no longer invisible. And everyone in that cabin knows the silence has finished speaking. The cabin does not move. Engines idle. The runway lights remain distant and unused. The aircraft, once impatient to depart, now feels suspended, caught between what it assumed was true and what it is about to learn. Marcus Hale stands beside the galley, posture easy, expression unreadable. His stillness is no longer mistaken for weakness. It has become a question the room cannot answer. The supervisor swallows and clears her throat. She has stepped beyond customer service now. This is no longer about seat numbers or upgrades. This is about containment. "Mr. Hale," she says carefully, "for our records, can you confirm your full name?" A subtle shift ripples through the cabin. Names matter now. "Marcus Hale," he replies. "Hale." Her fingers move quickly across the tablet. "Then stop." Her eyes lift again, slower this time. "Are you—" She hesitates. "The Marcus Hale associated with Horizon Media Group?" The name lands with a dull, echoing thud. A man in the second row stiffens. A woman across the aisle covers her mouth. Someone whispers, barely audible, "That Horizon?" Bradley Knox lets out a sharp laugh, too loud, too fast. "You've got to be kidding me. Horizon Media? The tech empire? That's impossible." Marcus does not look at Bradley. "Yes," Marcus says calmly. "I founded it 20 years ago." The cabin exhales as one. Phones rise not aggressively, not greedily, but instinctively. People recognize the moment they are inside history, rather than watching it from a screen. The supervisor's face drains of color as new notifications flood her tablet. Executive alerts, legal advisories, risk assessments stacking faster than she can read them. "Sir," her voice drops. "Horizon Media owns the livestream platform currently broadcasting this incident." Silence. Not awkward silence. Impact silence. A man mutters, "Oh my God!" Another whispers. That means Marcus finishes the thought quietly. That this interaction is already mirrored, archived, and flagged. Bradley rises from his seat, anger laced now with panic. "This is a setup. You planned this." Marcus finally turns to him. "No," he says evenly. "I planned to fly." The supervisor scrolls again, fingers trembling. She turns the tablet toward Marcus. "Sir," she says, voice tight, "our legal department has classified this as a high-exposure incident. They are invoking immediate executive oversight." Bradley's voice cracks. "Over a seat?" Marcus answers without raising his voice. "Over conduct." The supervisor straightens, Something resolute, settling into her spine. She presses the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen," she says, "thank you for your continued patience. Executive leadership has completed verification." She pauses. Seat 3A is confirmed and assigned to Mr. Cummings. Marcus Hale. A wave of sound moves through the cabin. Not cheers, not applause, but the unmistakable sound of recalibration. The audience has shifted. So has the balance of power. Bradley's face goes pale. "That's not fair." Marcus steps closer, stopping just short of Bradley's row. He does not loom. He does not invade space. "Fairness," Marcus says quietly, "isn't losing something you were never entitled to." Bradley's mouth opens. No words come out. The supervisor gestures gently. "Mr. Hale, you may take your seat." Marcus doesn't move yet. He turns instead to the cabin, the same people who watched him be escorted out, who recorded without intervening, who stayed silent because silence felt safer. "I'm not here for an apology," Marcus says. "What happened today wasn't about me. It was about a system that confused status with worth." A hush falls again. "For years," Marcus continues, "I've watched institutions avoid responsibility by calling bias a misunderstanding and abuse a policy error. That's how corporate negligence survives, by hiding behind procedure." A verse rises in his memory, unforced, steady. "For nothing is hidden that will not be revealed, nor anything secret that will not be made known." Luke 12:2. He meets the supervisor's eyes. "Truth doesn't need volume, it needs light." She nods, once. Marcus finally turns and walks down the aisle. This time, the aisle opens without hesitation. No one blocks him, no one questions him. He sits in seat 3A, not triumphantly, but peacefully. Bradley remains standing, disoriented, his authority evaporated. The supervisor approaches him next. "Mr. Knox," she says, professional but firm, "we need to speak with you off the aircraft." "What?" His voice rises. "Why?" "Because your conduct has triggered review under our legal accountability standards." The words are precise, unemotional, devastating. As Bradley is escorted forward, phones follow not eagerly, but inevitably. The story has turned. The villain no longer owns the narrative. Marcus looks out the window, runway lights stretching like a promise delayed, but not denied. He thinks of his father's words. Power doesn't shout. It arranges consequences. Another verse settles in him, calm as breath. The righteous remain firm, like a palm tree planted by streams of water. Psalm 1:3. The cabin remains grounded, but something essential has lifted. What was hidden is now named. What was assumed is now corrected. What was personal is about to become systemic. Justice has not finished. It has only identified itself. If you've ever been judged by appearance instead of truth, what happens next will show you what real power looks like when it finally speaks. Like, subscribe, and stay with Dignity Voices as justice moves from revelation to action. As executives activate emergency protocols and reputations begin to crack behind closed doors, Marcus Hale makes a decision that will transform a single injustice into industry-wide consequence. The plane does not move. That is the first undeniable truth. Not a delay, not a technical pause. A halt. Inside the cockpit, the captain sits with his hands folded on the yoke, waiting for instructions that are no longer coming from dispatch. On the tarmac, Ground crews idle beside vehicles meant to guide motion, not stillness. Time itself feels suspended, caught between a past assumption and an approaching reckoning. Marcus Hale remains seated in 3, a posture unchanged. His calm is no longer misread. It has become the center of gravity in the cabin. Around him, the first-class cabin has lost its confidence. Conversations die mid-sentence. The soft clink of glassware has stopped. Screens glow everywhere now. Phones, tablets, smartwatches, all pulsing with the same unmistakable signal. This is escalating. The supervisor steps into the aisle, tablet pressed flat against her palm. Her voice, when she speaks, is no longer apologetic or rehearsed. It is official. "Ladies and gentlemen," she says, "please remain seated. This aircraft is now under executive compliance hold." The words ripple through the cabin, quiet but seismic. A man near the window leans toward his companion. "What does that mean?" His companion whispers back. "It means lawyers are driving." Marcus exhales slowly. The supervisor turns toward him, lowering her voice. "Mr. Hale, executive leadership has initiated a Level 1 justice protocol." Marcus nods once. "That's appropriate." Her eyes flicker with something close to disbelief. In 17 years of airline operations, she has never seen this protocol activated in real time, mid-boarding, with passengers watching. A flight attendant approaches her, voice tight. "Operations is asking whether we should proceed with catering or no," the supervisor interrupts. "All discretionary functions are suspended." The attendant freezes. "All of them?" "All." The cabin absorbs the word. Across the aisle, a woman murmurs, "They've never done that before." Marcus's phone vibrates gently. He glances down. "Secure line corporate integrity." He accepts. "Mr. Hale," a composed voice says, clipped and formal. "This is the Office of Risk, Compliance, and Legal Accountability. We want to acknowledge a failure." Marcus listens. He does not interrupt. "What occurred today constitutes procedural misconduct, reputational exposure, and systemic bias failure," the voice continues. "We are activating immediate corrective measures." Marcus looks out the window at the runway lights stretching into distance. "Corrective measures aren't enough," he says calmly. "They have to be structural." A pause. Papers shift on the other end. "We agree," the voice replies. "That is why this protocol includes suspension authority." Inside the cabin, the supervisor receives an update. Her jaw tightens. She turns to the lead flight attendant. "Effective immediately. You are relieved from duty pending investigation." The attendant stares at her. "Investigation for what?" "For failure to enforce passenger rights equitably and escalation negligence," the supervisor replies. No raised voice. No embarrassment. Just facts. A second attendant instinctively steps back, eyes wide. Passengers watch as hierarchy dissolves, not with drama, but with documentation. Marcus ends the call and places the phone face down. Across the cabin, whispers multiply. "They're pulling staff." This is serious. That guy didn't even say anything. The supervisor receives another directive, her shoulders square as if bracing for impact. "Mr. Hale," she says softly, "executive leadership has issued a fleet-level advisory. This incident is now classified as high-risk exposure." Marcus nods. "Then it won't stay isolated." "No," she admits. "It won't." The captain steps out of the cockpit, face grave. He addresses the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, under executive directive, we will be deplaning temporarily. This aircraft will undergo an operational reset." A collective intake of breath moves through the cabin. Someone mutters, "The whole flight?" "Yes," the captain says. "The entire flight. This is no longer about inconvenience. This is about precedent." Passengers rise slowly, gathering bags in silence. No one complains. Complaints require moral leverage, and that leverage has shifted. As they pass Marcus, reactions vary. Some nod respectfully. Some avoid eye contact. Some whisper apologies that dissolve before becoming requests for forgiveness. Marcus remains the last to stand. The supervisor instinctively steps aside, clearing the aisle without thinking. She hesitates, then speaks. "Sir, on behalf of the airline." Marcus raises a hand gently. "Please don't." She freezes. "Accountability doesn't require apologies," he says. "It requires memory." She nods, swallowing. A verse surfaces in Marcus's mind, steady and unforced. "Better is a little with righteousness than great revenues with injustice." Proverbs 16:8. The jet bridge door opens again. As Marcus steps forward, his phone lights up with headlines cascading in real time. Commercial airline grounds aircraft amid discrimination. Review justice protocol activated after passenger. Removal internal suspensions issued within minutes. This is no longer a story. It is a record. Marcus pauses at the threshold, looks back at the aircraft emptying now, stripped of assumption, waiting to be audited from nose to tail. "This isn't about winning," he says quietly. "To no one and everyone. It's about making sure the next person doesn't have to be this strong just to be treated fairly." No one argues. As he walks down the jet bridge, the aircraft remains grounded, behind him logged, flagged, accountable. Justice is no longer symbolic. It is operational. And the collapse is already spreading. The collapse does not arrive with sirens or shouting. It arrives with emails. Marcus Hale sits in a quiet lounge, overlooking the runway, a temporary holding space offered without ceremony. The glass wall before him frames aircraft moving with mechanical obedience. Arrivals, departures, routines that pretend nothing has changed. But inside the systems behind those movements, fault lines are splitting wide open. His phone rests face down on the table. It keeps vibrating anyway. Across the country, conference rooms fill faster than emergency exits. Legal teams convene. PR executives cancel lunches. Compliance officers pull documents they hoped would never be read again. The incident is no longer under review. It has been classified. Inside the airline's headquarters, a crisis meeting locks its doors. Screens glow with still frames from the cabin, Marcus standing calmly in the aisle, Bradley Knox leaning forward with his sneer, the supervisor's hesitation caught in a single, irreversible second. A general counsel clears his throat. "This is not a PR issue anymore." A senior executive snaps back. "Everything is a PR issue." "No," the counsel replies. "This is a liability issue, a systemic failure with visual evidence." Silence follows. Someone mutters, "We followed policy." The counsel doesn't look up. Policy that enables bias is not a defense, it's corporate negligence. Back at the airport, Marcus watches a ground crew vehicle pass slowly, orange lights blinking. He takes a sip of water. He is not reading the headlines yet. He knows what they will say. Inside the lounge, a junior operations manager approaches hesitantly. "Mr. Hale?" Marcus looks up. "Yes, I just wanted to say," the man swallows. "I've worked here 6 years. I've seen things like this before. I've never seen them end like this." Marcus studies him for a moment. "Endings aren't the point," he says. "Corrections are." The man nods, absorbing that. On screens across the internet, the story mutates rapidly. Airline faces federal inquiry after passenger. Incident internal memos reveal pattern of discriminatory escalations, executives placed on leave as bored. Intervenes, the word pattern appears again and again. That is what breaks systems, not single mistakes, but repetition. At headquarters, the CEO stares at a report projected on the wall. How many incidents like this? A compliance officer answers carefully. Documented? 11. Undocumented? Likely more. The CEO exhales slowly. And this one went viral because the passenger was Marcus Hale. The officer finishes. And because the footage was unavoidable. In the first-class cabin, now empty, sealed, and awaiting inspection, technicians photograph seat rows, signage, policy placards. Everything that once blended into the background is now evidence. Meanwhile, Bradley Knox sits alone in a private waiting area, staring at his phone. His frequent flyer app refreshes again. Status. Suspended, he refreshes. The same. A message appears beneath it. Your account is under investigation, pending conduct review. Bradley scoffs aloud, but the sound rings hollow. His calls go unanswered. The number he dials for special assistance routes him to a standard queue. For the first time in years, his status means nothing. Back in the executive meeting, the board chair speaks. We need visible action, not symbolic. Real. A voice asks. What about the supervisor? She authorized removal without cause, the council says. She's been placed on indefinite suspension. And the flight attendants? 2 relieved, 1 resigned. Another pause. What about leadership? The room goes still. The board chair says quietly, I'm asking for resignations. Phones buzz around the table. Messages arrive from investors, from sponsors, from partner brands who do not want their logos adjacent to discrimination headlines. Within hours, the first resignation memo leaks, then another. At the airport, Marcus finally flips his phone face up. He scrolls, not obsessively, but methodically. He reads one headline, then another. He does not smile. He thinks of the young gate agent from earlier, the one who avoided eye contact, afraid of choosing wrong. He thinks of how fear reproduces itself inside institutions, passed down like policy. A verse rises unbidden, steady as breath. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. Proverbs 11:3. A reporter approaches the lounge entrance, blocked gently by airport security. Mr. Hale. Just one comment. Marcus shakes his head once. Not today. He doesn't need a microphone. The system is speaking for him. Later that afternoon, an internal memo is sent company-wide, effective immediately. All frontline escalation protocols are suspended, pending redesign. A mandatory equity audit will be conducted across all customer-facing departments. Employees read it in break rooms, in cockpits, in quiet offices. Some feel relief, some feel fear. Some feel exposed. A senior flight attendant texts a colleague. This feels different. They're not blaming one person. That is when people realize the collapse is real. At headquarters, the CEO drafts a statement, deletes it, drafts another. Words like regret and commitment blur together. The legal team strips it down to what must be said. The board chair sends a final directive. This is not damage control. This is reconstruction. Marcus boards a different flight that evening. Same airline. Different aircraft. No cameras. No confrontation. As he walks down the aisle, a flight attendant meets his eyes and nods not deferentially, but respectfully. "Welcome aboard, sir." That's it. No hesitation, no test. He takes his seat, not first class this time. Just a seat. He doesn't need elevation anymore. The system has already been lifted or broken trying. Hours later, as the plane climbs, Marcus looks out at the darkening sky. He thinks of how many stories never reach this point because the people involved lack reach, protection, or patience. He thinks of how justice, when it works, doesn't roar, it reorganizes. On the ground, more resignations follow. A vice president, then another. A training contract is terminated. A consulting firm is brought in. Federal regulators announce a preliminary review. The airline stock dips, then steadies. Markets, like systems, adapt. By morning, the narrative has shifted again. Airline announces sweeping reforms following passenger incident. Experts say case could redefine corporate accountability. Standards Marcus reads the headlines quietly over coffee. This was never about humiliation. It was about exposure. The collapse is not total. It never is. Systems rarely burn down. They shed layers, sacrifice scapegoats, and rebuild smarter or quieter. But something fundamental has cracked, and everyone inside the airline knows it. A junior executive stares at the updated code of conduct on her screen and whispers, "We can't pretend anymore." That is the real collapse. Not jobs lost, not headlines written, but denial stripped away. Marcus closes his laptop. He has done what he came to do, not by demanding justice, but by allowing truth to complete its work. The story will move on soon. Another outrage will rise. Another system will be tested. But for this one moment, a line has been drawn. And it did not require shouting. The airport is quieter in the early morning. Not empty, just honest. Marcus Hale walks past the same glass walls he stood behind days earlier, when the world felt compressed into a single aisle and a single seat. The floor shines with fresh polish. New signage hangs above the counters. Subtle changes small enough to miss if you didn't know where to look. But Marcus knows. He pauses near gate C-14, where a row of seats faces the runway. A jet lifts off, engines humming with a promise that sounds different now. He sits, hands resting on his knees, breathing in the moment without trying to capture it. Time has passed. Enough time for consequences to take shape. The airline's statement came first, carefully worded, legally precise. Then the executive apology, delivered not by a spokesperson, but by the CEO himself. No defensiveness, no euphemisms. Just a measured admission of failure and a commitment to change that would be tested, not applauded. Marcus watched it once. That was enough. Behind closed doors, the lawyers moved quickly. A settlement agreement was offered, substantial, generous, eager to close the chapter. Marcus declined the spectacle of a press conference and accepted the terms quietly, redirecting the funds into independent oversight and training programs. Not charity, infrastructure. Because justice, if it ends at compensation, hasn't finished its work. The airline announced a new framework for brand accountability, tying executive bonuses to equity audits and customer treatment metrics. Investors grumbled. Analysts adjusted forecasts. Then the market stabilized, because markets adapt when accountability becomes policy rather than promise. Marcus didn't celebrate. He never does. He stands and walks toward the window, watching a family board a flight together. No one stops them. No one questions their place. A child tugs on her mother's sleeve, pointing excitedly at the plane. Marcus smiles small, private. This is the part no headline captures. A gate agent approaches him, younger than the one from that first day. She hesitates, then speaks. "Mr. Hale?" He turns. "Yes. I just wanted to say thank you," she says, choosing her words carefully. "Things feel different now. We've had training, real training. People are listening." Marcus nods. "Listening is where it starts." She smiles, relieved, and returns to her work. He thinks of the moment he chose not to raise his voice, not to demand, not to punish for the sake of punishment. He thinks of how reputation management often focuses on optics, while accountability focuses on outcomes. One fades with time. The other changes what time reveals. A verse comes to him, gentle and grounding. "He has told you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God?" Micah 6:8. Marcus closes his eyes for a moment, letting the words settle. Later that afternoon, he boards another flight, same airline, different destination. No cameras, no announcements. The cabin hums with the ordinary rhythm of travel. He takes his seat, buckles in, and looks out the window as the plane taxis forward. A flight attendant pauses beside him. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Hale." Just that. No hesitation, no test, no assumption. The plane lifts off smoothly, the runway falling away beneath the wings. Grace doesn't erase what happened, it redeems it. As clouds stretch below, Marcus reflects on the lesson that carried him through the moment everyone else lost their footing. Power doesn't need volume, it needs direction. Anger can expose a wound, but restraint decides whether it heals or festers. He opens his notebook and writes a single line, something he'll share with his team later. Justice that shouts may win the moment. Justice that builds changes the next one. When the plane lands, the world continues. It always does. But somewhere between gates and boardrooms, a system learns slowly, reluctantly, that dignity is not a perk. It's a standard. And standards, once raised, don't easily fall. This story isn't about a seat. It's about what happens when quiet integrity meets unchecked privilege and chooses reconstruction over revenge. Marcus Hale didn't win by humiliating anyone. He won by refusing to become what wronged him. He let truth do the work, let systems correct themselves, and let grace be the final word. Better is the end of a thing than its beginning. Scripture reminds us, Ecclesiastes 7-8. The end here is not applause, it's alignment. Not vengeance, but restoration. If this story moved you, let it move you forward. Speak when it matters. Stay calm when it's hardest. Choose outcomes over outrage. And remember, justice doesn't shout. It lands softly, and it stays. If you've ever felt unseen, underestimated, or quietly pushed aside, stay with us. Like, subscribe, and join Dignity Voices for stories where courage is calm, justice is intelligent, and dignity always has the final word. What would you have done in Marcus's place? Tell us in the comments.